Today on Locked On Rockies, the conversations about Kris Bryant have been there, but what's really going on with Kris Bryant and where should our expectations be as Rockies fans for KB in 2023?
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 5th day of January in the year 2023. I'm your Rockies fan extraordinaire, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, well, you are in the right place. That's what we do around here, is talk about the Colorado Rockies every time one of these episodes airs. Well, guess what? You are going to find yourselves tuned in, locked on even to Colorado Rockies talk here. And we go to the fan perspective. We talked to some of the big wigs. We had a great long extended episode yesterday with Patrick Lyons of DNVR. And if you want to really go dive in, he was able to. What I like about bringing in people like Patrick is I am going into it's. I get to get someone that covers the team deeply, follows the team, is in the press box and things like that. Because a lot of what I do is from home. It's what I like to do. It's how I like my style. It's what I prefer. But I always want to talk to more of the people that are following, covering, doing the big time journalism about the team. Because I respect the heck out of what they do, but they give a good insight. And there was just so much in that conversation that I didn't even consider. And then plus, I had my kind of, things I was talking, for example, wanting to know more about what happened with Cody Bellinger and why Cody Bellinger actually wasn't really ever going to make sense for the Rockies. Patrick was able to bring in and talk about how the organization and actually approach those things of how that deal wasn't going to make it. And it was really, really fascinating. Really, really great stuff there. So go check that out. But of course, today here on the Locked On Rockies podcast, we're going to talk, because why I talk about that podcast too was it was a great podcast. We talked so much about the Rockies. And then I finished the conversation and I said, I didn't ask it. We talked minimal about Kris Bryant. It's kind of just an assumption with Kris Bryant in some facets that you're just like, okay, if Kris Bryant is healthy, your everyday left fielder is set up and you have that position figured out, and Kris Bryant's going to play every day and things are all going to work out fine that way and yada, yada, yada. But then I was thinking, how can we really even make that assumption? How can we even really sit here and have a firm grasp of what KB's impact truly will be with the Colorado Rockies? I mean, we have the small sample size. We do, and at least that's something. So there is at least a point, but there was clearly something really off with Kris Bryant last year. Whether it be, because it started with sleeping wrong, and then it was a foot thing that there was a lot of really weird stuff that happened with Kris Bryant. So above all, before we even start thinking about the possibilities of Kris Bryant's impact on the lineup, we have to wonder and hope that and make sure that this guy's going to be on the field. And I'm hoping for it. I do not want, this isn't about the contract, isn't about anything. The best thing for Kris Bryant, for himself and for Rockies fans, is for Kris Bryant to be on the field, because we know Kris Bryant is going to impact this lineup. Kris Bryant makes the Rockies better. We can say that. The Rockies get depth. The Rockies get experience. We've talked about this before. In the small sample size, in the player that is Kris Bryant, it doesn't matter at what stage of his career, he is a solid baseball player. Still, he's a solid veteran presence. The contract and those other stuff there, those are sure questions and parts, but Kris Bryant, the baseball player, is still going to contribute and make a Rockies team better this year. Kris Bryant was, when he was in the games, was impactful enough that we can assume that he is going to make these closer games swing in the way of the Rockies. It's not going to be a big swing, but hopefully the Rockies aren't going to look so inept on offense because they have Kris Bryant, and that takes some of the relief away from CJ Cron, and the young guys start pick up on major league hitting and contribute on offense as well. But at the same time, can we sit here and be overly enthusiastic and ready to just kind of go headlong into believing in a strong Kris Bryant bounce back year? I want to, but it's kind of like the free agent period again. The question mark still remains, and that biggest one now is going to be staying healthy. So it's really weird to kind of think about. I mean, this whole offseason, I mean, we've spent very little time on this podcast talking about Kris Bryant. We've mentioned him in segments. We've done an episode or two about him, but the focus really is for the Rockies on these prospects and having them finding the field and playing time. It's pretty amazing how much Kris Bryant has kind of faded away already from not only the mainstream look at the Rockies, even though that's the one question that Rockies fans hear from other baseball fans is Kris Bryant, what's up? What's up with that? But the answer to that question is kind of, I don't know. I really don't know. Because I mean, the upside is still there. The upside, I think, is still high. I don't think Kris Bryant is going to be a bad baseball player, a detriment to the Rockies, outside of maybe the money commitment and years commitment. But I mean, if he swings the bat well, if Kris Bryant is swinging the bat well for the Rockies next year, that's going to be major for the and it's gonna draw more attention to the Rockies and put the Rockies in better positions to win. However, the predictions, at least that I saw from Baseball Reference, have me a little worried about possible Kris Bryant outcomes, and we'll talk about that next here after I tell you about our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From pro football, get in on those last college bowls while you can. We got the big one coming up. I think isn't there one more as well before the big one too? I can't remember, but you know where you can find out more about bowls or hockey action or basketball or baseball future bets? Well, it's betonline.net. If you love sports podcasts, they got those too. They're over there at betonline.net. They're the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about betonline.net. That's betonline. BetOnline, where the game starts. We're talking Kris Bryant today, folks, because it's something I feel like we haven't done a lot of this offseason. We mentioned it. There are pods with it, but after taking the time and having bringing on an expert to the show yesterday and talking very little about Kris Bryant, it kind of makes you think big picture about this deal. Kris Bryant's going to have I don't know if he's going to have a hard time. It's tough. Kris Bryant's going to have a hard time breaking through to the diehard Rockies fans if he doesn't wow. Kris Bryant, for example, and then this is what I tease to, this projected batting line from Baseball Reference, and this is a projection right now and on January 5th with not knowing, or so totally subjective here. But let's just play. It's the end of the, we're in the deep of the off season. We're playing classic sports. We're doing classic sports talk here and diving into the numbers aren't horrible, but I got to see more from Kris Bryant here than this line, personally. in some areas. According to Baseball Reference projections right now on the Baseball Reference page, 349 plate appearances, he's going to have 309 at bats, 48 runs, 81 hits, 18 doubles, 1 triple, 12 home runs, 37 RBIs, 4 stolen bases, 33 walks, 75 strikeouts, 262 batting average, 341 OBP, 443 slugging, OPS is 784. Like, I mean, they said it's a 75% on their reliability. If this is what Kris Bryant ends up being next year, that's not great. Kris Bryant needs to hit 20 home runs for the Colorado Rockies. He needs to dominate Coors Field next year. He missed out on getting to play there a lot, but how much the Rockies love Kris Bryant and wanted to go after him and bring him into the fold, he needs to dominate Coors Field next year, and that includes home runs. Kris Bryant needs to hit more than 20 home runs for the Rockies. I think that is a big benchmark of what we'll see for Rockies winning close games, Kris Bryant's performance, and the Rockies offense as a whole. If Kris Bryant isn't over 20 home runs, that's an issue. Kris Bryant needs to be part of your power. I liked what we saw when his ability to drive the ball last year, not out of the wall, but for extra bases, kind of sprayed around a little bit in his limited time. With again in what was it, 181 plate appearances, he bats 306, 376, 475, 851 is his full line. I mean, that's a pretty good. That's a nice sample. That's more like it. That's really high. That's a crazy amount of production, but I'm saying more in the 280 batting average range. And RBIs have got to be much higher than whatever this projection was. Kris Bryant cannot settle for 37 RBIs. Some of these numbers I do wonder, because if Kris Bryant has 37 RBIs with 12 home runs next year, massive problem. While being healthy and contributing and playing more, in the lineup every day, like he's expected to be, that cannot happen. Kris Bryant simply needs to be a much, much, much bigger factor in your lineup than that projected line, especially in those two categories. The big thing I'm worried about, and what we've seen a lot is Kris Bryant's history is he'll strike out. He has struck out over 150 times, twice in his career, over 130 times. You add a couple more. He's really been in triple digit strikeouts, and outside of 2018, pretty significantly over into strikeouts for like that. So I do worry what Kris Bryant's going to do if he is sitting at 75 strikeouts for the Rockies. Man, oh man, that'll be great. I mean, that's a huge drop off, a 33 to 75 walk to strikeout ratio. So kind of like a 1/3 type of deal there. Interesting. It's not quite. I know that's not exactly how it's going to work. It's not, that math actually doesn't even come close to working. But anyway, it's not a horrible walk to ratio. But if Kris Bryant is able to cut down on his strikeouts, and he is able to avoid kind of this career path that we've seen of high triple digit strikeout numbers, great sign for the Rockies. Really, really curious to see how the Rockies offense getting a breath of fresh air from the outside is going to be a really, really interesting thing for this club, to see how the Rockies offense is going to be different next year. I think we'll see what Bam Bam does there and gets things going. And again, we'll see if Kris Bryant's going to be patted around and kind of help out. And if Kris Bryant's swinging the bat well, the young guys are going to swing the bat well. Brendan Rodgers is going to swing the bat well. CJ Cron's going to swing the bat well. If Kris Bryant is shouldering in the center of the lineup for the Rockies, again, they're not going to be blowing the doors off of everyone or anything, but it's Kris Bryant should be leading the charge when the Pirates and these other teams that are on the bottom end of baseball come into town. Kris Bryant should be all over him, and he should be leading the charge of the Rockies. And I really want to see 100 RBIs from Bryant next year. To me, I don't think that should be that crazy as much as that should be the expectation for Kris Bryant. You bring someone like Kris Bryant in and you expect him to do that. Now he's only gotten 100 RBIs once. So maybe 100 RBIs is too high. But if CJ Cron could do it, Kris Bryant can do it. Maybe it's too lofty of a goal, but this Kris Bryant is supposed to be the type of player we can set these goals for. And what is the point of committing what you've committed to him if you can't set lofty, bigger goals for the Rockies and Kris Bryant? That is the reason why you bring Kris Bryant in. That is the reason why you turn to Kris Bryant, is so you can go out and and get a big impact player. Kris Bryant is going to have to show up for the Rockies and stay healthy. Is there a reason to think he won't? We'll talk about it next. Talking Kris Bryant here on the Locked On Rockies podcast. You can find us free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. But hey, if you want to stay up to date with things going on in the world of baseball, especially in the prospects, you got to go check out Locked On MLB Prospects. We've had Lindsey Crosby on the show a couple of times. You all love those episodes. I know you love hearing about the Rockies farm. If you want to hear about how they're still improving, how all that good stuff is happening on the Rockies farm, go check out the Locked On MLB Prospects podcast there for your second listen of the day, because we thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Should we believe Kris Bryant is going to bounce back? You know what? I'm just going to go with a simple, short, easy answer of yes. I think we need to give Kris Bryant the benefit of the doubt. I think we need to believe in what Kris Bryant can do for the Rockies and believe in the small sample size. The Rockies are just going to face a big issue if this doesn't work out. The long commitment of this deal include and the fact that he is part of a logjam with your number one prospect potentially still screaming through the system. It is time for Kris Bryant to show up this season for the Rockies. And I don't feel like that's a bravado, like classic thing. I think he's saying that too. I think he wants to go out and prove why he came here, why he wants to lead this team. Yes, the money. Obviously the money. We know that. But there is the competitive nature. There is the fact of the matter is it is going, you have to sit and believe in Kris Bryant and him being the reason your offense is going to be better. Because if not, the reevaluation needs to start coming real fast. He needs to get out of left field and into the DH spot real fast to figure it out there and get the prospects in there. Because again, this is the time to figure out. This is the time to capitalize again on another wave of potential great talent and go from there. Rat King says, it doesn't matter how good our offense is if we have the worst pitching staff in Major League Baseball. You know, you have to just kind of have faith in the small moves right now. Again, they're not going to be dominant. They're not going to blow you away. But the Rockies are going to beat teams because they outlast them and out-exhaust them in Coors Field. They need to get back to winning those boat races instead of being the one falling out of the boat at the dock. And yes, their pitching staff is not going to be elite. But again, you've heard me talk about it before on the show. I believe that the Rockies starters, in at least Kyle Freeland and German Marquez, can be better and will be better next season. I think Kyle Freeland was better and was a victim more at the beginning of the season, which had impacts down the line for him due to the fact of the team playing horrendous defense for an extended period of time during last season. The Rockies pitching staff was not great, but we have to remember with some Rockies pitchers, one and including injury to the Rockies having potentially one of the most special arms in a bullpen at the rate he was going, is the defense was terrible for a bit. The pitching also terrible. I'm not making it, but remember, the Rockies lost a lot of close games because of bad defense in the beginning. But the Rockies pitching staff also walked in 5 straight batters to lose a game. That happened too. But that's again, it's all that's all good points. The issues with the Rockies are many. But one of the big issues and one of the interesting issues with the Rockies is just what's going on with Kris Bryant. He's not really been he's been there. People are, I know that he's going to be healthy. They say he's healthy. It's all behind him. There's all that stuff. But the buzz around Kris Bryant is a minimal one. How do the Rockies and how do Kris Bryant bring that back? We'll just have to wait and see. Folks, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for joining us here. You can find us free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. Just search Locked On Rockies and you'll be taken to where you need to go. Thank you to Rat King for joining the show here. You can be part of the show in the live chat. Just subscribe to Locked On Rockies. You'll know when we go live. And it helps the show grow. We're almost at 300 subscribers. The YouTube is growing. More and more folks hopping into the live chat now and talking on the comments as well. So we got lots going on with Rockies. So come hang out with us here on Locked On Rockies. And you can also stay up to date with all things Colorado sports with the Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets podcast, and all sorts of great stuff across the Locked On Podcast Network. Follow us on Twitter at LO Rockies and me, Paul Holden, at Paul Holden 33. And until next time, I am Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.